Gordon and Gianella, thank you so much for being here today. We're really glad you could spend a Sunday afternoon with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Gordon, I just have a personal fascination. You know, months ago or years ago, probably on YouTube, that Landfill Symphony. That video was so popular, and I fell in love with it. In my field of intercultural communication, we all just love that. Can you tell us about your...
Well, my experience, or let's see, I can tell you that just like everybody else, I received a message that you've got to see this about Paraguay, the Landfill Symphony. And I went to YouTube, and I thought, oh my God, this is the guy who started all this is a guy that I met when he was 15 years old. And he was, at that point, he was transcribing a Mall in the Night Visitors for him and his teacher, and they put on a performance. I was there at that point conducting this choir in Paraguay, and over the course of years, in going back, at one point I helped him start his first chamber orchestra with a group of bankers, but he was just such a phenomenal guy. He researched the music of the Jesuit priests and all kinds of Renaissance and Baroque music. He was excavating out of all these different Indian villages in Paraguay and Bolivia, and from there, and he's also his name is Luis Saran, an incredible composer as well. And we met a couple times in Italy when he was studying and I was on tour, but over the course of time, he became incredibly interested in developing a program for the poorest people in Paraguay and going out into the nearby villages of Asuncion and bringing people in to play instrumental music, and kind of inspired by the program that was going on in Venezuela. But he went way over the top, because some of the people that were involved in that project of the sort of the poorest or the lowest possible economic level, they were actually working in the all I can say in the Asuncion dump, you know,
Wow.
And some of the people that were coming into the orchestra were actually the sons and daughters of the employees of the dump.
Yeah.
And these parents were so creative that they said, well, you know, we don't have enough money to buy a cello for our son, and so out of a barrel and they looked at how a cello was made, and they started constructing these different instruments made out of the refuge in the city
Dump.
That's
Yeah.
all I can only say. And that group, I know they've been to Kennedy Center to play, and my hope is that I've been trying for 2 years to find a time in this guy's schedule where he can come and conduct the orchestra and tell us how all this has come about. And if I can't get that together, this year I'm going, I have a plan to go to Paraguay this summer.
Oh, I might have to carry your suitcase.
Just to find out exactly, you know, what's going on, how they've managed to do it. Because the people there are incredibly musical, as is Mexico, and Latin America in general. But the economic level is way below Mexico throughout the countryside.
So even lower than the people who live at the dump here in Mazatlan, I would imagine.
Probably about the same.
Okay.
But the amount of industry in general in Paraguay is much less. So the level of poverty is pretty. Just examining per capita income, you can tell exactly where they really are. But the amount of innovation that they've been able to generate is really incredible. And the fact that I know the guy really well who put all of this together.
And I've known him his whole life. That's so cool.
And so, like I said, he's a composer, music historian, and now innovator. And he also has a chorus and chamber orchestra that he conducts in Italy. And I mean, he's just pretty dynamic guy.
Yeah, well, and isn't that beautiful? He gives to others, and then it's brought him up. You know, it's a good lesson for everybody. And think of those kids then. They've gotten to travel internationally and played in some really awesome venues.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And again, thinking back to this, our story of this place in Oaxaca, where in the early 70s and 80s, they went up into the hills and said, "What do you need? Blankets, food?" And they said, "No, do you have any valve caps or strings for our clarinet?" And what had happened was they'd, in the 30s and 40s, they had sent up all these instruments up into the hills to just pacify. At that point, they thought they would be pacifying the Indian population. And they just took to these instruments, and they were still preserving these instruments, and they left their indigenous instruments on the one side, and put all these instruments in the forefront, and developed their own music school, their own music instrument repair shop, their own series of instruments. And my best student on the French horn is also from that same place. And so I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen in Paraguay from this landfill symphony. How many instrumentalists are going to come out? And it's like, I have to get back there to see what's happening.
Yeah, you owe it to yourself. Thank you, Gordon. That's marvelous.
Great story.